So for this video we are going to try and light this subway train. It's a pretty common train to try and light. We're gonna try and do it by using the Joker as a main reference. We're gonna not try and do too much complicated things. We're gonna keep it as simple as possible and as straightforward as possible. So the first thing I would like to do, just because I need that, is I want to make sure I have a general color that's suitable for the lighting. So using PureRef, I'm gonna press S and I'm gonna click on the image. This gives me a color picker actually. So having the color, I'm gonna go into these materials, and I think it's the trim. And I'm gonna go into emissive color for now. I'm just gonna add that color in, and it should be updated to a certain degree. You can see it here. I'm gonna do the same on this one. Actually, for this one, just apply instance, and on this one we are going to do the same. Gonna go to the overhead. We are going to put this color in, and we have a general color for the sources. That's kind of what we're aiming for. And then we just need to look at the reference. You can see that there are light sources coming from these sources. Now obviously they have done shot by shot, and we have an actual level we are trying to light here. So that means we need to figure out what to do. So the first thing I'm gonna do, we have this, I guess, so that's fine. So we're gonna try different things, because it's important to understand that lighting is a very iterative process. So the first thing I'm gonna do for now is maybe consider skylight, and having a skylight that's movable for now, just quickly. And I'm just gonna see, okay, that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because I don't have a sky map, and as I said, I'm gonna keep it simple as possible. So we're not gonna do that. So we're gonna use another way of doing it. So the first thing we're gonna do, we want to make sure that we have some level of light. So let's put this spotlight out. Now of course all of these have some kind of a point light and stuff going on, so we're not gonna use it. Actually, just for the clarity, open blueprint editor, and I'm actually just gonna see if it allows me to kill it. Think so, yeah. We're gonna do the same for this one. We're just gonna get rid of the original stuff. Okay, and it seems to be fine. That's cool. Good. Okay, that leaves us with this this light here, which we are going to put straight into. Actually, we're gonna create a new folder. We're gonna call that lighting instead of light. Alright, so job number one, we need to figure out the best possible way to replicate the overall look. So these are diffuse light naturally. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna have some kind of range, right? And as we know, these are tube lights, so to speak. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna increase the radius. We're gonna increase the source radius a bit, and I'm looking at this area over here. And then I'm gonna increase the length. And let's just pretend that this is okay. Now for the sake of argument, for the time being anyway. Let's just press shift, put it all the way over here, and then we want to make sure that it's not that big in size. Right, so let's put it, I don't know, something here. I'm holding down Alt and Shift. I'm just gonna quickly copy it over. Like so. Now, is it too many lights? Technically, yes. But we're gonna fine tune it afterwards. Okay, and then we're gonna Shift Alt. We're just gonna quickly copy this one over to this side, and I can see that this didn't actually register. Seems to be their own thing. So let's go in. That's a lot of light, and let's save it. There we go. All right, so this is how it looks right now. So it's super it's a lot, basically. Let me just turn off stuff here. Okay. So why the axis? In case you don't know, it's when you have overlapping stationary lights, and I think it's 4 or something, 4, 6, that overlaps, and it then turns over to either movable or static, I believe it was. So for now we're just gonna keep it static, and then we're gonna press G, and the goal here is to make sure we have a reasonable amount of range. So we're typing in, kind of looking at the shadows and getting a general idea of how far we want it to go. So about 350. And again, it's pretty diffuse and very high contrast. You can see it's very high contrast and diffused. Okay, so with that done, we're gonna, since there's a lot of it, we're gonna tone it down to about 5. Okay, so just for the sake of test, we're gonna do a quick build, which is on pretty low setting. And this is important because we want to have a general idea of amount of lights, and because I'm just doing static right now, the amount of lights doesn't have any importance at the moment. Okay, so it's important to remember that we are trying to understand the type of lighting. Now, one thing to keep in mind with cinematic lighting is generally they are exposing for the high values. That basically means they're pointing the camera and they're pointing at the brightest spot, which is the actual light sources here. And when they do that, everything else becomes darker. So the blacks, they actually become black. So you actually lose shapes and form in movies and TV shows, because the cameras, our eyes can see 20 EV. Let's for now just call it brightness and darkness, and the cameras that they use, they are about from 10 to 15, so they still don't capture all the bright and all the darkness. So therefore we focus on the brightest spot, and it looks good enough for our human eyes, but that's also why you have all this darkness that comes in on the pictures. Okay. Okay, so we can see, all right, it's pretty bright. It's not necessarily, you can see there's a hotspot there, and you can see the hotspot there and here. Okay, so what we are going to do to deal with it, because again, I'm not going to complicate anything, so just gonna have a general idea of how many lights there are on this side. Okay, and then we're going to rename this to, I don't know, left spotlights, and we're gonna rename these to right spotlight. Oh, that's the wrong place. Right spotlight. Now, just so you know, because I didn't mention it in the beginning of the video, but generally when I start projects, instead of depending on post-process early, I turn off the bloom and everything, and I turn on the luminance range and the pre-exposure. This just gives the higher value that you can see here. Okay, so we're gonna take the lefts, and because it's a soft light, rather than trying to soften it up even more, we're just gonna tilt it slightly bit more, and then we're gonna go for there, and we're gonna go for let's try 85. Okay, and then we're gonna keep kind of make sure that it's more of a spread. Okay, so that's 350 and 85. Do the same here. So we put it up around here, 350, 0, and 85. Okay, so the general idea is that we're trying to get the cone angle to spread out a bit to give the illusion that these are in fact the correct type of lights, and get rid of this bake effect you see here. And then we can select all the lights. Let's put in the color. Let's press S. Let's take this color and let's put in, there we go, Control S, and let's do a quick bake. So like I was saying, when you're doing this kind of cinematic, they have a range of values, right? So when you do photography, you have the EV goes up to, let's just say, from 0 to 20. So the right side, the 20, I guess you could say, is the brightest spot, and if you go to 0, it's the darkest spot. Because the cameras, they only capture between 10 to 15, most cinematographer, they have a tendency to capture the brightest spot to compensate for the lack of technology compared to what our eyes can see. So even though our eyes can see a lot more, the cameras, they don't necessarily capture it all the time. But because we're working in a game, we have the opportunity to kind of eyeball it and fix these kind of things, unless you're purposely trying to stay within the limitation. But keep in mind, our eyes can see a lot more, which is why this is an art. All right, there we go. Now, I'm not actually sure why there's a fog coming, because let's see if I can find anything. So okay, so let me just check another thing. Okay, so first of all, I guess we can keep the cameras. Don't want to keep this. Okay. Is it this? Is it something I'm missing somewhere? Because I thought I deleted everything. Nope. Nope. Is it just reflection? Oh, something. Is it this one? Maybe. I think so. Something else, but we don't need a guard race, so it might be this one that's being baked. Okay, maybe it's this as well. Go in there, let's just delete it, and let's make sure it's added, and there we go. So these things happen, and it's very important to be able to spot things and then go, okay, how do you figure this out and how do you solve this to the best of your ability? So it needs to have more oomph, right? So how can we do that? There are several ways we can do that, but to deal with the basics, let's add a reflection probe as well. And for the reflection probe, let's press G. And one of the things with the reflection probe, it covers a lot of area, and you kind of want to make sure that it's within the desired look and feel that you want. So I'm curious to know, is there a chrome material here? No. Okay, so we go to materials then. We make a chrome material, so basically that means and I press 3, so I pressed 1 for these and I press 3 for this one. These are the hotkeys. And for this one we want to make sure it's totally white. Why did I do that? White. For this one we're gonna add 1. I'm gonna click apply, and then also we want to make sure that reference is 0 because we don't want it to be rough. I mean, and if you do like 1 in specular and you click apply, you see that it gets like a combo. So the reason we're gonna add a chrome ball is pretty simple. It's just a quick way for us to get the general reference of if the reflection is working the way we want it to work. Okay, so here you can see what we are actually capturing. So if I were to try and narrow it down, do build reflection capture, we want to make sure that we have the quality we want. So there's nothing outside, so it's just not going to capture skylight or anything, so that's not a problem here. You can increase the brightness, so if you wanted a bit more oomph, you can look at the reference and go, okay, is there a lot of reflection? I mean, there's a lot of speck, I guess. There's a reflection here, there's a reflection there, so I mean it is fairly arguably fairly reflective, you could say. So you would have to make that decision if you want to do it like a quick fix, I would call it, to get that look you want. I'm just gonna, one of the things that's annoying with this is just it takes so much time to scale it down. So let's just go here and do 350. Wow, can't believe I got that right. Cool. Take a new build reflection probe. Okay, it's just things I do, especially because I also use Unity for lighting, so there it's even more specific when it comes to these things. And then I want to make sure so that you will add more eventually, actually. So we don't need this for now, so let's just hide it. Actually, kind of know it, so it's okay looking. Okay, so already you can see we're starting to get a similar look and effect, but it is a lot more greener, right? It's a bit more greener. Now we can post-process that later if we wanted to. But what we want to pay attention to though is the materials and the look of things. And you have to remember another thing is this one is off and this is on. So we have a similar effect across this scene where it's only 2 light in the middle, give or take, from our reference. So we have a few more. So what we're gonna do, because we're lazy, we are gonna, for example, just delete this one. Then we're gonna put this one over here. And then we're gonna has to be a quick way. Actually, there's not a quick way. This one is, I'm not sure, I think this one, I don't know, it was 2 of them actually. That's not good. Right, so what I'm doing now, I'm just cleaning, just to cheat a bit, yes you could say. And we want to make sure that we have some system to it. I mean, arguably, normally I would just do this and just delete them, to be fair. So let's do that. Put this one over there, give or take. It's snapping a bit wrong, so we're gonna go here, try 5. There we go. And then we're gonna make sure it kind of looks okay. Not sure. And then what we're gonna do next is to see the floor has a bit of an effect to it. So what we're gonna do then, we're gonna add the Planar, which normally has to be turned on, but I already had it on actually. So I'm gonna press G. So what it does, it gives you a look at how it might look. So for that we're gonna get back our Chrome ball sphere, is it? Did I delete it? Probably. Oh. Huh. No problem. Okay, so this tells you this is a preview. It says here, turn it off. You can also get a look at what's going on. You could actually increase it to about higher ground, or we're gonna put it about right height, about here. We don't need it to be this big though. Let's just see if I can get it then general. So what I'm looking at this here. So we don't want, let's see, it's not too much of a wobbly distortion, I'd say. Right, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna just play with it a bit. So we have at least like 350, seems like to be a good one. We're gonna see if we need any pre-filter roughness. and you can see that on these handles, the effect it does. Okay, we're gonna see if we want some more distance. We want those white highlights to be there. Okay. Around there. Okay. And then we don't necessarily want it to be that expensive, assuming it was an actual game. Well, let's just do it somewhere around here. Let's just save. We don't actually have to use a reflection capture because it's immovable at the moment. Now another thing you could do, which is also a fun thing to do if you wanted to, you could take the planar reflection, right? You could make it like super small, because most people, they use it for the ground, but if you do this, you can get some reflection onto the wall as well. So for the fun of it, because we're not trying to have a playable level this time around, I say, well, let's do that. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get a view out. Well, that's a bit of overkill. So that will be around here. We want to make sure that this is the reflection range. Okay. So I'm paying attention to this hair wall and this area here. And then okay, what are we wanting to reflect, right? Okay, now this doesn't actually, well, this is not a very cheap thing to do, but hey, might as well have some fun and show you other stuff you can do, you know. And let's just do something similar for this. Let's do a 280, not 270. Okay, this was correct. Turn it off and turn this off. Okay, so now you can see we have kind of a clearer reflection going on in general in this wonderful subway. Another thing we want to do, let's have a look. So the idea is to keep things very simple, right? We don't want to overcomplicate, and we want to show you what you can do with as little work as possible. So we just want to make sure we have this effect. You can see this effect here, right? Now you can, I mean, in some cases, if you wanted to, you could go in here, right? And you could start editing it, and you could have a look here, and you could kind of get an idea of the stuff you could do. So these are pretty, I would say it's decent enough, the material. I think it works. Might actually increase it a little bit more, like 1.5, like so. I think it works. Okay. And then we want to look at a couple of other things here, and I think that's fine. So we want to push the green color a little bit before we investigate any other things we would need to do. So for that we can add a post-processing volume, and we can kind of overlay very quickly, because you know, why not. So we're gonna go into post-process volume, we're gonna do it infinite. So we're gonna add a quick bloom, just to, because you can see this scene is pretty bright. I'm just gonna make it more, I don't know, kapow. Which might change because there's a few other things we need to look at. And then I'm not gonna go into exposure for this. Let's go to temperature and just see if we can use the temperature to get the green. Probably not. So we're gonna use the tint, right? Yeah, I mean, that looks kind of the same. Maybe push it a bit more. Yeah, that works. Right? Control S. That's fine. And then we want to have, because it's a bit more, because this one is a bit more contrasty, right? It's not that clear here. So we can go to global and just see if we can get away with this, right? So you can see we're getting those darker look and darker areas. Another thing I can notice is I have to sometimes play around a little bit to see if I can dim it down slightly more, right? To something like this. So if I have a look, say, now these are actually darker, so there's no reason why not have a bit fun. So let's do a control, and let's do, I think this should work. Well, it's pretty dark, isn't it? It's a bit too dark, because you have to remember this has already been lit. So if we go to maybe this one, I think we'll get a bit more accurate look to it. And then it's probably on the blue actually. It's probably around here. I think it's more blue, because remember we have a color on top right now. Okay, I see what's going on. That's not a problem actually. Let's try again. Put this in there, and then I want to make sure that it's more towards destruction. Okay. Go back to the post-process volume, because again you have to remember we're not actually looking at it the same thing. Yeah, I guess we can get away with it. Maybe a bit more. Maybe have a bit of creative choice. Yeah, that looks a bit more accurate. Done. We need to turn this back on. No, we don't need that much contrast. We need just tiny little bit. Dim the gains down a little bit. Actually, what we'll do, we'll keep the gain at 1, which is the brightest point. And then we're gonna instead tone down the mid values a little bit. And then we're gonna go to the shadows. Then we're gonna kind of bring the shadows back up. Right, the seeds are a bit, you know, so. I'm not gonna spend too much time fixing the seed. It's okay. We're not trying to be super perfect. Just teaching you guys one way of doing this. But it would be fun to see if there's a way to change this door just for the fun of it. What happens if I do this? So for the fun of it, let's just pick this color and see if it likes it. It's not exactly the same color, but maybe you could go like around this edge. Just trying to have like somewhat the same things, right? Of course it spreads it around because it's not its own object, but that's fine. Yeah, I would say it's pretty close. So, but anything we can do that we want to do, arguably the floor, which I'm pretty sure is gonna give me a headache, is more brown towards this way, right? Maybe a bit too much. It's close enough. Cool, that's fine. There is one thing we need to work on, which is these artifacts that's going on. So how do I want to solve it? I know it's okay. Let's do a little tweety. Left spotlight. Where are you? There you are. So let's move this one a bit out. Like so. And let's do the same with the right spotlight. We move this one also a bit out. Now again, this is an unedited video on purpose, because I think it's important that you realize that a lot of people who are making things aren't actually showing the reality of the workload that goes into these kind of things. Now I'm also just gonna quickly start doing another thing. Gonna tweak this down to 4, and I'm gonna, let's see, that's correct, that's correct. Don't actually need that on 8, but whatever. We're gonna rebuild the light. When we rebuild the light, you can see how it's starting to get, you know, similar kind of tone. But the key difference is a minor detail that I haven't fixed. I'll let you see if you can spot it. Let's see, can you spot a very key detail? So the key detail that I noticed while talking is some of these are dirty, so they look a bit more yellowish. So they give a bit more yellowish color to it. So let's see. Okay. Let's go to the cameras and just have a look. So I mean, again, this is not a very complicated tutorial. It's just to give you a general idea and process of simple things you can do to enhance your rendering and your lighting without too much work. If you do want me to go into more detail, more complexity, like custom SDR, IMAP, and all these things, there is obviously a possibility to do that as well. So let's see this. It's a bit too reflective on the top, so we have to think about fixing that actually. Yeah. So we could soften the light a little bit more, but I think we are close to it anyway. But I'm curious to see what happens if we make it slightly, little bit more darker. So if I go to 4 on this, and I also put 4 on this. But these are not realistic values by means. That's a different topic altogether. Take 8. Gonna do 50, 125. Go back to the right. 850, 8, 50, 125. So the reason I'm doing it is just to soften the light a little bit. And then, whoa. Okay. And then we're gonna go to the post-process volume. And actually what we're gonna do, we're gonna pause. We're gonna start going up to medium. So I had to cancel the lighting bit because it was taking too much time. But I also gonna redo the light because it became too dark. There's a couple of other things I would do besides the lighting. Like I can see there's some reflection on the roof here, but I might want to tone it down. So I would probably go in to these materials, and I would try and kind of tone down certain things. Maybe I would turn down the metal value a little bit, or I would increase the roughness if it's possible. So maybe I would exaggerate and click like 5 and see if that did anything. Kind of save. And if I don't see like, because I'm not familiar with the materials naturally. Right. And roughness power. Right. So this changes that thing. So I'm gonna go out from this, go to the ceiling panel. I'm gonna try and make it not that reflective. Okay, so it's just barely reflective, right? So barely reflective. Another thing I would try and do, I would go in here and I would see if it's possible to use the existing material, and I would actually rough this up a bit, see if that's possible. Yep. And I would save that. Why? Because, you know, these are not that shiny in that sense. Another thing I would do, I would probably try and figure out these windows, this glass. So I would probably go into the glass and I would see if it's possible to make them a bit different looking. So that's a tiling. There we go. Let's exaggerate a bit. That's kind of cool looking, I guess. Why not? Let's have some fun. Let's just be a bit stupid for once. But I would probably tone it down a little bit. Okay. So it's a bit black. So is that a little bit like this, and the glass color will probably make it a bit darker, maybe even more darker, and I would put it actually more on the green size, like so, right? Something like that. Cool. Nice. And yeah, I think this is long enough for this tutorial. I hope you learned something, had some fun. I'm gonna pause the video and it will actually take some time because I obviously didn't overkill on the lights. Well, for now I'm gonna do one little check as well. I'm just curious. Go to optimization, go into light map density. Yeah, it's pretty high up. See, pretty much. I wouldn't necessarily keep it on this setting if it was a playable level, but we don't care in this case, so we'll keep it. So yeah, there's always more to do obviously, but I don't want to keep these videos already super long. But I think it's safe to say that we are having a buggy wheel. So let me just pause and restart. Okay, I'm back. So I'm just trying one thing because I said I was gonna keep it short, but you know, as a lighting artist, you get picky. But I'm gonna keep it short. Just gonna do a couple of tests just to get an idea, and I might do some more on my own afterwards. But what I'm doing, I've shortened the cone angle for these to cover less of an area, so they don't cover the roof. The reason for that is because these are more half cylinder shape, and they are already on the top. So you can see we don't have it on the top, we have it at the bottom. So what I'm trying to see is what happens if I reduce it down there. Now you lose a lot of light. The reason is because they're not bouncing as much and the range isn't actually going far enough. So for this, we're gonna select them all, and we're gonna just do 450, 550. We're gonna do the same for the right spotlight. Gonna go 550. Okay, and then we're gonna do another build. I just pause for you guys. Okay, I mean, there's always more to do, obviously. I would probably also go in here, and I will probably try and make this but maybe not that much, but more towards the brownish, maybe. You know, kind of matching it a little bit. And I would probably then also maybe, I mean, it's almost 1 hour, so I think that's good enough. One more thing. So sorry. There's just so much that you can do. That's the point here. So there's a limit on how much you can teach and pass on in such a short time. But just one little tweak. I also notice that will help. See that? See this? Kind of what I'm doing. It's kind of making a bit more grungy and dirty looking as well. Okay, I mean, it's not perfect by all means, but for a 1 hour quick tutorial, it's not bad. And with no preparation, keep in mind, this was not rehearsed in any shape, way, or form. I mean, it's a bit more grey, isn't it? So maybe go, I don't know. Maybe more this way. Something like that. Okay. Hopefully it was useful. I mean, you can see it's starting to be pretty identical. It's a bit more brighter, perhaps more reflective, but I mean, you can always tweak that sheet a bit. You know, you can pump it up a bit, something like this. Let's say you do 2.5. I'll go to post-processing very quickly. There's probably one little thing I forgot. Well, probably more than one thing I forgot, but that's okay. Another time, if you guys leave positive comments and let me know you learned something, I'll keep doing it. So where is it? It's there we go. So just gonna scroll down to the occlusion, maximize it. Voila. See now. Nice. It's actually not that much on this one, so we can actually dim it down a little bit to something like that. You can see it here, for example, in the windows. And I guess we can turn on. Do we want to? bit grungy looking. Well, works. And one more thing. But there's always more to do. Let's just want the bloom to pop out a bit more. Is that okay? Kind of need to something like this. Cool. And is there anything else I want to do? Or even though chromatic aberration is actually not correct in Unreal, let's give it a tint of, you know, with a little tint, just a little bit. Let's see, is there any dirt mask I can use in here quickly? Let's do a screen. Yeah, well, give it a bit, make it a bit more white. Put it on, I don't know, 55, 150. Maybe it's supposed to be black. I don't remember actually. Sometimes it doesn't work due to the camera angles. Let's just do a quick check. There we go. So let's do, I don't know, for the fun of it, 55, it's subtle enough, I think. Yeah. And let's give it a little bit of vignette. Cool. Yeah. Probably a bit more brighter here and there, but that's okay. Probably push a bit more light. I'll do a final render afterwards. Might actually push this a bit more. Towards this direction. That more or less. And actually in this case I do notice that it's a bit more shiny here and there. Cool. And last but not least, I think I'll stop. Okay, I'll stop. I'll show some pictures that you see here at the end of the video here now. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thank you. Hope you learned something. Bye bye, or in my case, good night.